Hello everybody, welcome to Chin Fat. On this episode I am showing off the menu setup for the Sony a6300, which is one of the small, very affordable cameras that has a really good low light sensor. It's not as good as like the a7S II, but it's pretty decent in low light, and it's for the money. This is a really great camera, and I'm showing how to do the setup and the menu options to set up to do video work and movie making work. If you're making movies with this, making short films or whatever you're making, or documentary, this is a really good camera to do it with. It doesn't have a full-size sensor, but it still has a really but it's still really nice quality, and has all manual functionality on this camera. So it's not by any means a consumer camera. You might consider it prosumer, but it does have all the professional kind of manual functionality that you would get on a more expensive camera. So what we've got here, I just want to make sure that everybody knows where everything's at. Right on top of the camera here, you've got your on-off switch here. So if I have that off, to turn it on, you're just going to flip the switch here and turn the sucker on. All right, then on the back, just some of the functionality wheels here. You'll want this little switch here up to the autofocus, manual focus setting if you're doing video work, so you can toggle between auto and manual focus. Just have that switch flipped up there. And now you've got some little control wheels here. You've got this control wheel right here that spins, and it also clicks. It clicks left. It clicks left, right, up, and down if you click on this outer wheel, and it also rotates. So this is going to help you get through certain menu functions and to certain exposure functions and among other things. Now you've got a little button in the middle that is a select button. You push that button and it will select. So you got your rotating wheel, your left, right, up, and down, and you also have this wheel on top of the camera right there that spins. But with this wheel here, with spinning it and clicking it left and right and do the middle click, you're going to be able to get through most of your menu functions. I'm going to hit my menu here, and we're going to go in the menu and just kind of quickly show how the menus work. So here on top of the menu, you've got different sub-menus. It starts off with the camera over on the left-hand side, then goes over to the gear, and then you got that wireless thing, and so on over to the toolbox. To access those menu features, you can arrow up until you get to the camera. Notice how the camera's highlighted, and now you can arrow right, and it goes through all these main menus here. As you get to one of these main menus and you want to go into those functions, you arrow down and it goes under. Now we're under the toolbox here, and you've got 7 pages you can go through. You can't go past what is on the very bottom here, because each page just goes from top to bottom, and you can't scroll down past more. If you need to access more items, you just arrow to the right, and it goes to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and so on. If you once you're in these submenus, if you need to go into one of these settings here, you just simply arrow down to the one that you want. Here I'll go to HDMI settings and push the middle button, and it enters those settings. To get back out of those, you hit the menu button to get back, to go back a page, and it will go back a page by hitting menu. And this will also work with scrolling. If you twist this wheel in a circle here, it goes down. If you arrow up and get into your main menu here and you start scrolling, notice it goes down again, or it goes up, but your small wheel up here will take you through your submenus. If you use the small wheel here, it'll take you through the numbers. If you arrow up and get to the main menu, it'll take you through your, this wheel on top here will take you through your main menu options. So that's basically that is the basic functionality of those wheels back there. You also have these custom buttons here. You have custom 1 on top, and you have custom 2 down here on the bottom. You can program those. You can program any of these clicks for very specific menu functionality. When you hit it, you can make it bring up like a focus magnifier or something like that. And we'll show you how to do one of those options in a bit here. But that's the basic functionality on the camera. Let's get into the menu system and start showing you how to set this up for cinema use, for movie making use, and video use. All right, everybody. So we've opened up the a6300 menu here. This has been freshly reset back to factory default, so what you can do on inside the camera. I'll show you how to do that in a bit here, but right now this is the all brand new menu here. So I'm going to hit English because I'm speaking English. I'm going to enter my day and time. I want you guys to know where I'm at, so I'm going to pretend like I'm in Denver. Mountain time, date and time. Okay, I've got my time and date set, and once I have the basic setups here, little advertisement from Sony. Okay, and now we're in the main menu here. I don't see an image because I have my lens cap on. For initial setup here, a lot of these things are in automated mode right now. So I'm going to go, to set this up here, I'm going to go under Menu, on the back. And there's three major things you want to do on the camera setting here to get your camera initially set up. I'm going to move over to number 2 here, and one of these include your file format and your record setting. Right now, because I'm going to a 1080 monitor that I'm recording on, I have to keep this in 1080, but you're going to want to go on file format, and if you're shooting 4K, you're going to change it to 4K. Right now I'm just shooting in HD because I already explained why. So you want to set it for 4K and you put it on the top one there. Then you're going to go down to record settings and you're going to change this to the format that you're recording in. If you're shooting under 4K, this will show 100 megabits per second instead of 50 megabits per second. This is half the resolution, therefore half the quality. But you're going to want to likely choose, if you're doing film mode, 24p. If you're doing high frame rate, you can choose your high frame rate at 120. It'll only do 120 frames per second at that quality if you're shooting in 1920 by 1080. Keep that in mind. But right now I'm going to be setting it for 24 and selecting that. So that's the first thing I set under the camera mode. The other things that I want to do here is I'm going to move over, and that's under the number 2 menu under the camera mode there, under the camera subsetting. I'm going to arrow over to number 5, and I'm going to go down to picture profile. Under picture profile here, number 5 under the camera setting, I'm going to select that. I'm going to go down. I'm going to choose a picture profile so I can have a little bit more of a flat profile, so I have a little bit more latitude and color grading and contrast and grading. But this will make your footage look very flat, but it gives you more latitude and dynamic range. I'm going to select picture profile 8. This one I'm going to arrow over to the right here. Arrow over to the right will open the settings up. And this one is already set the brightness levels at the gamma at S-log3. This is a log format, and the log format gives you that really flat profile. And then if we move down here, the color mode, it has a little gamut 3. It's the S gamut, and it has the cine mode at the end, which does a little bit of kind of baked in look on the colors, on the saturation and whatnot. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to arrow to the right to select it. Be careful not to do the select button because it just gets it moves it out of it. I'm just going to go to S gamut 3. It's just kind of a personal preference. Makes everything kind of as flat as possible so you have more latitude in grading. And I'm going to menu back, hit menu to get out of this, and you can push your button down to select PP8 now. Picture profile 8 has been chosen, and we're now in Sony. We're in the Sony log, S-log. One other thing you'll want to do to set up is I'm going to hit menu, and I'm going to arrow over to the camera here and go to number 7. And down here, movie HFR. By default, everything is program auto. So it's actually auto irising, it's auto ISOing, it is auto shutter speeding, it's auto everything, which is annoying. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to move down to manual. We want everything on a manual exposure. You don't always want it on there, but if you're doing filmmaking, legit filmmaking, you're probably going to want everything on manual so you can adjust shutter speed, ISO, and your iris, your f-stop, all on your aperture. So I'm going to select manual here, and now we are set up for manual function. Now looking at the menu system on here, I have a Sony lens attached, which digitally reads to the camera. Moving down the line, at the very top right now, you'll see that we're in our movie mode with the wheel on the top of the camera. And moving on down below that, we have autofocus continuous there. If you want to get into that, you hit the FN button on the back of the camera, the function button, and you can arrow over to your focus mode. Now, depending on what type of lens you have attached, depending on what type of photography you're trying to do, if you're trying to do movie making and you want everything manual, you can select this and you can arrow down to manual focus and have everything be manual focus. If you have autofocus continuous, it's trying to detect what's in front of the lens and focus on that automatically. If you have a Sony lens, it actually does a pretty good job with this. And those are the two modes that you have in your video mode here. You want it on autofocus auto if you're taking still pictures, but we're not doing still pictures, we're doing video. So you have your continuous and you have your manual focus. I'm going to select manual focus right now. So what we've got under the MF there next is our, this is what it's deciding to focus on. So I'm going to hit function, and we go from our focus mode over to our focus area. Our focus area, if I select this, it brings up a whole bunch of different functions for what you want it to focus on. And you have, if it has these arrows left and right here, that means you can arrow left and right and it will change them into a different area. And you have large, medium, and small here that you can choose through the flexible spot that you can actually change on your screen. If we go to, you can go to center. If things just lining up in the middle, you can do center weighted. If you do wide, it's trying to focus on anything that kind of gets in front of the camera there in general. And there's some other ones here you can kind of mess with, but usually wide and center are the two that I end up using if I'm doing, if you're doing something like a camera on a Ronin, it's quite helpful. So I'm going to put that on wide right now and get out of that. And as we move down, you see picture profile 8 there that we've already selected, we've already set up. Move down below that, and we've got our shutter speed. Our shutter speed is controlled by the back thumb wheel on the very back of the camera. If you put your thumb on that thumb wheel and just start rotating, and we're in full manual exposure mode, you can change your shutter speed. If we're doing film here, I'm probably going to want to do 1/50th of a second, so we do half exposure time. And then we move over to the right, and right from there you have your f-stop. That's your f-stop is a measurement of your focal length and your aperture. Together you get this. You get your f-stop, but that's essentially our aperture, how wide our aperture is. The smaller the number is, the wider it is, and that's your little finger wheel at the top right-hand side of your camera. As we grab that and move it, you're going to be able to change your f-stop. If I take off my lens cap here, and I move my thumb to the right or left, we get less exposure. Move it to the left here and open it up more, you get more exposure. Right now my ISO is on auto, so it's automatically compensating for the light that I'm putting in here. Let me put it outside here. So you see it's getting dimmer there as we go higher, and it's getting brighter as we go to a lower number, to a lower f-stop. But with our ISO, I'm going to hit, and now as we move over to the right, in the very corner, in the bottom right-hand corner, we see ISO auto. And ISO auto, you don't really ever want that on auto very often here. I'm going to hit my ISO button on the back of my camera, and I'm going to arrow down. And this is on S-Log, and the ISO, the native ISO that this runs in S-Log, the lowest it will run is 800 if you're shooting in S-Log. If you're shooting in a compressed format, and if you're shooting in like a 709 format where it's kind of more contrasty and color saturated, you'll be able to go lower, especially if you're going outside. This would be helpful. So right now I'm going to choose my ISO at 800 and put it in manually. Go to the left of that and you'll see what's called an exposure meter. Right now, it is telling me that I am more than 2 stops overexposed here. So if I move my iris and iris down here, you'll notice eventually it's going to be going down till it reaches 0, and then it will tell me that I'm at an optimal exposure. I'm really not at this point, because right now what I want to show you, if we hit the function button on the back of the camera, we can move over to this icon right here for metering mode. This is our light meter. If we select that, we can tell it to meter for the entire image. We can center weight it for the center of the image, and we can also spot meter, which is really the small area. Let's put it on spot meter and show you what it's doing here. And you see that little gray, or you see that little dark circle that it's put under, that's our spot. It's telling me what my exposure is for that region right there. And right there it's telling me that I'm 2 stops, at least 2 stops underexposed. It stops at -2, so if I change my iris here, iris up, eventually I'm going to get that into the right exposure range. I'm going to put my spot meter right on the wall right there. If I put it here, it's going to be way too overexposed because I'm losing detail, so I'm going to put it right there. And you can see it change to 1.7 there, and right here it just maxes out and is blinking at 2.0. I'm going to put it right here, and it's telling me that that's 1.7 stops overexposed. So I'm going to iris down and get that right there. And now it's saying for that spot right there, for that one spot, that is properly exposed, is what it's suggesting. That's right around like 50 IRE. So if I change this back to more of a multi here, a wide or even center, then it's going to do it for basically the entire image here and give you kind of a reading. And right now it's saying for my entire image that it's a little bit underexposed, just like 1/3 of a stop underexposed. If I hit my display button on the back, it'll take away display options here and bring some back. And I'm going to eventually hit this until I get my histogram. And there's my histogram right there. This is also a good little exposure meter right here. I want to get that mountain so it's kind of in the middle, and that would be a fairly good reading. Right there for my overall image, I'm getting that mountain kind of in the middle, and I'm getting a fairly good exposure right there. If that's too far to the left, that's showing underexposure. If it's more weighted to the right, that's a bit of overexposure. So we kind of want that mountainous region in the middle. Let me focus here. And finally, one more thing that I like to do here with this camera is I go into the menu and I want to put my custom 1 button to aid on focus. I hit menu. I'm going to arrow up and go to my camera and arrow over to this cog, arrow back down and start going through these menus here. I'm going to move over until I see under number 7 my custom key setup here. And under custom key while I'm shooting is what I want to set up. I'm going to select this. I'm going to put my custom 1 button, my C1 button on the top next to my finger, my little picture taking button. I'm going to select this and I'm going to go to arrow down a whole bunch to go to focus magnifier. I've just programmed my C1 button for my focus magnifier. So now when I go back, I'm going to hold down my picture taking button a little bit just so it gets out of the menu here. Goes out of the menu. And now when I hit C1, it puts up a square. And you use your thumb on the back wheel here, the arrow over to the left, kind of the joystick, to get it on whatever you want to focus on. Say I want to focus on those letters right there, and my camera's panned over a little bit like this on the tripod. I can arrow this over to the right, and I hit C1 again, and it will zoom up to those letters there. And now I can use my focus on my camera, get that into sharp focus as it can get. And it doesn't look like it's getting super sharp because it's kind of zoomed up on the image digitally, so it's kind of loose in quality. But right there it looks like it's fairly focused. I hit C1 again, and we go back out, and I know that is in focus now. Another way of confirming focus is to go under Menu and arrow over to the left under your gear and find peaking level and turn this on. And select that and turn this on. I'm going to turn on high so it exaggerates it quite a bit. And I'm going to go into peaking color. And since I got a lot of white, I'm going to turn it to red color. And now when I go back, you won't see it here because it's broadcasting through HDMI. As you focus, your grain is going to get really, really heavy on what's in focus, and it will have that heavy concentration on it if it's a heavier focus. And those are 2 aids helping you keep things in focus. I'm going to pop a card into the camera and show you the last little item here. Got a card in there. And right now, under the current format, it shows like I can shoot 2 hours and 41 minutes of footage. I'm in 1920 by 1080, so it's not the highest quality yet. But I'm going to hit Menu, and I'm going to arrow up. So I go to my wrench here, and I'm going to go all the way over to the toolbox. And once I'm on the toolbox, I'm going to arrow down and start arrowing to the right to go through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I find Format down here. I'm going to go down to Format, select, arrow up, hit Enter, and format my card. And it erases everything on the card. And now the format's complete, and now I have a blank card ready to shoot and ready to go, and my camera is all set up for making movies. If you have any questions, please post them. Thanks for watching.